Hey guys, good evening and welcome back. So today, we'll continue with the Selenium real-time scenario-based questions. So we will continue on that particular series because that is very very important, and people are also interested to uh, interested in all those videos real-time scenario based Selenium questions. So let us continue on that series. So this is a part 2, so which is how do you the very first question is, how do you reduce the maintenance cost of the automation suite? So I mean, this is basically to check the ROI. So how do we reduce the maintenance cost, right? So because whenever we set up an automation framework, and if we are running, it's not one time setup, guys. So it is not once we write the test cases for that particular test case, and once if you create a CI/CD pipeline, and this cycle entire runs throughout the life, this will never be the case. So we have to keep on maintaining that that particular test cases, those particular test cases time to time, because UI will be changing time to time, and there could be test data issues, there could be there could be n number of issues will keep on happening. So the main point what I'm trying to focus is the automation setup is not one time job. So you have to, after setting up, you have to maintain that particular automation framework as well. So that is very very important. So that is the reason this question is maintenance cost of particular automation suite. So what do we do is how do we write the stable test cases, how do we design the test cases in such a way that so we can expect the less failures from the production, or once it is the job is created, so how do we get less number of failures? So that is what we want to discuss in this particular point. So one is we have to apply most of the times locators issue will be there, and test data issues will be there. We have to focus on why so many test cases is going to fail. So one is the strong locator strategy we have to apply. So we have to put a locator in such a way that it should be flexible enough to handle multiple times UI changes as well. So that is very very important, and you have to you have to start writing the reusable methods, because sorry guys, because for every time every QA is writing one method for his own purpose. So this will there's no, it does not make any sense actually. So you have to write the methods which are reusable, you have to keep it in the utility classes, and you have to start using them, and you have to educate the team to write such methods, and you have to educate the team to use those methods. If they are not writing the utility methods, at least they have to make use of it. Instead of writing their own utility methods, so they have to start using the existing utility methods, and you have to focus more on utility methods, and avoid duplication issues we have to avoid. And there are sometimes there are test cases will be duplicated knowingly or unknowingly, so those also have to be reduced, and you have to keep your automation test cases stable. So even though if the tests are failing, so you have to analyze first what is the reason for failure, and fix it in such a way that even next time if such challenges happens, so it should not fail. So that is the main focus here, guys. So then the second question is so this is very very important. So one test case depends on the another test case, how do you handle this? Okay, so this is very very important. So because whenever we write the test cases, so there are certain cases where the first test will be dependent on the second test, or second test could be dependent on the first test. So this will keep on happening. So the thing is why, what is the reason why the dependency is there? So in those cases we have to make use of some of the attributes, we will be having annotations, or we will be there are ways to deal with it. So first execute, when it comes to the sequential methods, so we have to execute that particular test case. So then you have to execute the second particular test case, because say for example there is a test case 1 and test case 2. So test case 1 is to generate the latest Excel file, and test case 2 is to upload the latest file. So if you execute the test case 2, it will fail because there is no latest test case file. So you have to execute the first test case to get the latest execution file, then you have to supply that execution, I mean latest file into the second test case, right? So in this case, first you have to execute in, it should go in the sequential mode. Okay, so first execute the test case 1, then execute the test case 2. So in that case the problem will be solved. So always try to write the independent test cases, so that even if it runs in the random order also it works. But there are some cases we cannot write it independently, so those test cases should be handled with some extra attention. Okay, so that is what the thing is. So then comes okay, this is fantastic question, guys. You joined a project with no framework, how will you start automation from scratch? This is the common question during the interviews. So if you joined a new company which there is no automation framework, and how do you start it? So this is very, very important, so please pay attention to this. First of all, so in those cases you have to get the approval. There should be an approval from the management side saying that we have to start the automation. First you have to talk to them, talk to the stakeholders, and talk to the managers, and talk to your QA managers or dev managers or product owners and all. If they say yes, so then the second step is to understand the application architecture. First you have to understand the application. So I mean basically application understanding is like where it will start and where it will end. Okay, so what is the architecture of that particular application, what are all the modules are there in that particular application, so what module is dependent on what module. So this is a broader level concept, guys. You have to pay attention, and you have to have a little bit technical thinking as well. So how do you think, or how do you see the application in the top view perspective? So how many models are there, how many the second point is identifying the critical user journeys. What are all the user journeys? So what are all the business use cases? So where the user will start and what is the user ends. Say for example, adding a client to the system and creating a schedule into the for that particular assume client is a patient, adding a patient into the system, creating a schedule for that particular system, and completing that particular schedule, and then paying, we will be getting paid, right? So in the home healthcare industry, that is what happened. So once the patient is onboarded, so it will be so the schedules will be created, and once schedules are performed, so then accordingly it will goes for billing, and it will goes for invoice, and the invoice will be closed. So this is one user critical journey. So like that we have to identify those many use cases or those many user journeys. So then we have to set up a POM. So what is the architecture we are going to use it for the particular framework, what are all the technologies we want to use it for that particular framework. So all those things we have to decide. So then start automating it, and start writing the reports, and start emailing the report to the stakeholder, and create an CI/CD pipeline, and logging, and screenshot capture, and failed test cases, retry mechanism, and parallel execution capability, and all we have to implement. So it cannot be done in the single go. So keep the holistic perspective in the beginning itself, and you start small, but that small should be supportable enough in the future, saying that all your the whatever the high level architecture will be there, right? So the reporting and logging and all will be there. So for that it should be able to support. So like that you have to automate, and then once you automate it, so then report will start email will start hitting the stakeholders. So then they will see, and then they will come back to you, or you can also present it, saying that what are all the scenarios that you have automated, and how much business value it is going to bring into the system. So those things and all very, very important. You can prepare one PPT, and you can set up a time to discuss with the PO and managers and all, and start discussing it. So this is what the manual execution time, this is what how much time it takes to automate, and this is what the efficiency gain. So the efficiency gain is manual effort minus the automation effort, and by manual effort. So manual the efficiency gain should always be plus 90%. So if it is 90+%, so then it will be a very good framework. Okay, so that you keep it in mind, guys. Okay, So then the next question is like, how do you decide what not to automate? So this is very very important, guys. Like when it comes to the automation framework, I might have already mentioned in some other videos as well regarding this one. So this is not like everything automating will not work, guys. So like we have to think in such a way that, like, return on investment. So in that perspective we have to think, and I mean one time test cases and all automating, and rare edge cases scenarios are automating. That does not make any sense. So those are all bringing the value into the business, and what are the critical user journeys and what are the critical functionalities that we have to automate. Only those things we have to automate. What are the things which comes in one time or two times, don't automate. Those are not going to bring value to the what do we call, team. Okay, so really required regressions, and really bringing critical I mean the value bringing scenarios for the business, and critical user journeys and all you have to automate. Okay, so then comes so developer changes the DOM structurally frequently. How do you make automation future proof? This is very important, so please pay attention. Okay, if you don't answer this question properly, then they will get to know like you don't have proper knowledge. Okay, so this is very important. So first, in this kind of a cases, we have to discuss with the developer, and we have to discuss with the dev team, like what are all the changes that they are going to bring in, what are all the attributes they are going to change. So if the DOM structure is completely changing, we have to change everything from the beginning. So that is the reason we have to discuss with them. So then they will, like, they will update like these are the attributes are going to change. So based on that we have to think like what are all the test cases is going to fail. So or like if those are failing, we have to fix it. So the second thing is like while writing the XPath itself, in the beginning itself we have to think, so it should be able to support to the future as well, even if the UI changes. In that context also it should be able to support. So then, like, text based and all, don't write the XPath for the text based. So but use the flexible methods like contains and all, but don't use the static text and all. You make sure to, like, pass the text from the however we want. So we can pass the text from the outside also. So you try to work on that. So then keep the locators in the centralized way, so that you can go at one place and you can change all the XPaths. Okay, so that's all from my side, guys. I hope you like my content. If you like my content, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel, guys. Thank you so very much for watching. If you have any concerns, please let me know in the comments down below. I would be very happy to help you, guys. Thank you so very much, guys.